The Second World War had projected Australia into the heart of world affairs, but it realised it needed to stay there if it was going to develop its economy and if it was going to develop a relationship with the East which would ensure its future security. And the one man who did more than any other to bring this about was called Herbert Evatt. Eventually, he became President of the United Nations, which was an honour previous generations of Australians would have found absolutely inconceivable. Herbert Doc Evatt was one of the architects of an ideal that became the United Nations. Australia suddenly went from being a pawn to being a player at the round table when it was given a seat on the Security Council in 1946. Before the war, Australia was hardly on the world stage at all, was it?
Exactly, yes, and this was a great worry to him and worry to everybody, but it wasn't on the world stage. It was amazing, Australia, but a lot of people honestly didn't know much about it.
And eventually he became President of the United Nations.
Yes, in 1948, and that was very, very exciting because I was there, I was all of 16. He was very proud. Here he was, President of the United Nations, and he'd come from this little country, Australia. And he made Australia get on that map.
Evatt was the mouse who roared. As president, he instigated a simple yet profoundly significant act that is as important today as it was in '48. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
He felt that was terribly important, and he was a big believer in human rights for all people, doesn't matter where they came from.
When the war was over, presumably he must have had a conviction that all countries should get together again and start working for the greater good.
Yes, he did. He said they've all got to work as one. Really must. That was very, very important. You've got to discuss things. You've got to work it out. Yes, he was a great believer in that.
Evatt was a champion of civil rights, of women's rights, of workers' rights, and he was passionate about the family. And yet he's hardly discussed at all nowadays, and a lot of younger Australians that I've spoken to have never even heard of him. I think that's a real pity.